John, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us. You played with one of Liverpool's great number sevens in Peter Beardsley, under arguably Liverpool's greatest number seven in Kenny Dalglish. Where does Luis Suarez compare to those two?
Well, in terms of his ability, he's right up there with both of them. Opinions may vary as to whether he's better than Peter and Kenny. Some may say yes, some may say no. But in terms of ability, yeah, he's up there with them. In terms of the prestige he will have at Liverpool, really depends as to whether he stays there long enough to accumulate that. But in terms of his ability, absolutely, 100% up there with both of them.
And how would you compare him to the likes of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo?
I don't think he's at quite that level. I think that, when you talk about those two, I think that those two are the best in the world. And they are head and shoulders above everybody else. And then you have another group of Ibrahimovic's, Suarez's, players like that, of which there aren't many. So I think he's in that second batch of the second best players in the world.
You say those two, they are the best two players in the world. You have had the fortune to play at the same time as Diego Maradona. How would you say those two compare to him?
Well, you would put those two, both of them, up there with him. But I regard Diego Maradona as the greatest player that ever lived. But in terms of saying that are they on the same level, absolutely, because I don't think that when you talk about either them or Pele or Alfredo Di Stefano or any of the players who are considered to be the best in the world, you can actually choose one and put him definitively above the others. So yes, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, both of them would be up there with Maradona, just below it.
2 days before the World Cup kicks off, it will be 30 years to the day you scored your famous goal at the Maracanã. Who are you tipping to light up the World Cup in Brazil?
From an individual perspective?
From an individual perspective, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Lionel Messi play, because of course he's my favourite player, and I think he's the best player in the world now, one of the best players in the world ever. I'm glad Cristiano Ronaldo is there, although Portugal don't necessarily play in a way to make him shine, if you like, the way Messi does. I'm looking forward to seeing Neymar play for Brazil, because I don't think Brazil have got that many world-class players, and I think they're my favourites for the World Cup, and he'll have to put in a good World Cup. As far as Suarez goes with Uruguay are never a sparkling team to light up a World Cup, although they can win because they're a very, very good side. But the way they play isn't necessarily the most eye-catching and pleasing, so they're going to be very strong. But I think that it'll be a South American player and a South American team, because I can't see a European team winning it. If you look at Eden Hazard, for example, and the Belgian team, who are probably the most improved and probably the most up-and-coming team in world football, Colombia went to Belgium and beat them 2-0. And we would say Colombia are one of the top South American teams? Probably not, but they beat Belgium in Belgium. So I would look at any of the five. Look at Chile coming to Wembley and beating England 2-0. The South American teams, I think, are too strong. I think under different circumstances, Spain would probably be my favourite European team to win the World Cup, but I don't think they have that hunger and that determination anymore, having won the Euros, then the World Cup, then the Euros again. They probably haven't got that drive and that desire. Germany, up-and-coming side. England haven't got the strength and depth, so I'm going to go for a South American player and a South American team.
As a former England player, what would you be happy with England doing at this year's finals?
Getting through the group. Regardless of whether I'm a former England player or not, we have to be realistic. As a former England player, I'd love England to win it. But if you ask me what I think will happen, it's a very difficult group they're in. I think if they can win that first game against Italy, they've got a good chance of going through. You don't really want to be playing Uruguay last game, having to go through, or even the second game. So if they were to go through, I think they could get to the quarterfinals, because if they go through the way that the groups are, they have as favorable you can get in a World Cup, last 16. But then the last 8 will be Brazil or Spain or a team like that, which maybe. But as I said, I'm not even looking to the final 8. If they get through the group, I see that as a success.
In your England days, the team had a lot of talented players like yourself, Peter Beardsley, Chris Waddle, Paul Gascoigne. Where do you think the players of that ilk are these days? We just don't seem to produce those sort of players anymore.
Well, what has to happen is that any of the players with the potential of the players that you just mentioned have to be given an opportunity at their clubs, because these players were playing for top clubs at the highest level. Whereas if you look at the England team now, apart from obviously Gerrard and Rooney, there are a lot of the England players who aren't playing for their top team, not even playing for their clubs. Look at the Manchester United boys, Welbeck, Cleverley, Smalling, all of these players. They're not even playing in the first team at Manchester United, so how do they improve? Unless you're going to be regularly playing. Andros Townsend, he's not regularly going to be playing for Tottenham. Raheem Sterling, is he going to be regularly playing for Liverpool throughout? So the potential that you have, the only way you can improve and realise that potential is that you are given an opportunity to play regularly at the highest level for your clubs. And that's the biggest problem that England players have. Consequently, that impacts on the England national team.
It'll also be 24 years this year since you were part of arguably the best football song that's ever been made, World in Motion. There's no more football songs anymore. Do you think football takes itself too seriously these days?
I think football, I think it is made to take itself seriously because, of course, the ills of the world are thrown at football's doorsteps in terms of racism and all of the wars because footballers. And look at the newspapers now. Anything happens, you hear a footballer does something wrong, and a footballer who's like, plays for a local Sunday team. All of a sudden, the headlines say footballer does this and footballer kills this person. And because we're all footballers, everybody plays. Now, because of that, then football can't be seen to be lighthearted. So therefore, if you then come up with a song and you lose, they're going to say because you have wasted too much time making songs. So it's unfortunate, but I don't necessarily blame football. I blame the environment and society for taking football too seriously. I don't think football necessarily takes itself seriously. I think the society takes it too seriously.
When Kenny came back to manage Liverpool, I remember hearing a lot of Asian supporters had difficulty understanding what he was saying in his press conferences and post-match interviews. Were there ever any occasions when he was managing you that you sometimes wondered what on earth he was talking about?
Well, I was lucky because ever since I started to play as a centre, at Watford, you always had Scottish players playing for all clubs all over England. So I was very used to the Scottish accent. So I didn't have a problem, but I understood. And of course, with a lot of the foreign players coming in the last 10, 15 years, they have problems. But they have problems with Jamie Carragher as well. So Kenny's no different. But no, I could understand Kenny.
One final question. You played in one of Liverpool's finest side, team in '88. How would that team compare to the likes of Pep Guardiola's Barcelona or Bayern Munich of last season?
Well, it's difficult to compare teams, but back then I would like to compare us to when I talk about compare because it's a direct correlation because they were playing at the same time. The AC Milan side at that time who won the European Cup because they were saying, could we win the European Cup because we're banned from Europe? And I was saying, well, that Van Basten and Gullit and Rijkaard team, they're a very, very strong team. Could we have beaten them? Maybe we could have won one. I don't know. You can never tell. So it's difficult to compare. It's more difficult to compare eras because, of course, football is different now. Whereas, back then you were allowed to kick people and fight, and the ground was muddy, and whereas now in perfect pitches you're not allowed to tackle. Who knows what kind of a team could have been? But I think that we would probably. I would like to have thought that we would have been more similar in terms of the way we played. Not just the way we played, but the balance we had to Bayern Munich more than Barcelona. Because I think Barcelona played probably a more beautiful game than even we played. But I think they didn't have the balance right because, at the back they're terrible. Yeah. Whereas, Bayern Munich have a very balanced side in terms of the relationship between the defenders and the midfield players and the attack. So the Bayern Munich team for me now is the best balanced side. So I'd like to think that we were probably more comfortable today.
Any regret that you never got to play in the European Cup?
I've no regrets in life at all because that was meant to happen. I'm a fatalist, and if we were meant to, we would have. And people say, what if, and who could you have won, and do you regret it? It's, it would have been nice if we had, but we hadn't. So we have to look overall at what we did and be happy with that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.